Hi, it's Dawn from Dawn's Durkameen Gardening, Durkameen Animals, Durkameen Homesteading, Durkameen Politics, Durkameen Religion, Durkameen anything that we want it to mean on today's podcast. And so super excited to have this show. I have Mary from a tiny homestead, and she is actually a podcast host. That's how I met her, as I was invited onto her podcast. So check it out. And she's got a tiny farm started. And so thanks so much for being on the show today. We really appreciate your time today. So thanks for being here.
Well, thank you for asking me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to get started, let's just tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, who are we talking to, Mary?
You are talking to a 55-year-old woman who's tired. I have 4 grown kids. One of them is still here, the youngest. He's 23. We have a 50 by 100 and something foot farm to market garden. And I do not do the gardening. My husband does. I help him plan it, but he does the gardening. He's the avid, absolutely obsessed, loves it gardener. And we sell from our farm stand here on the property. We sell at the farmer's market. We have chickens, so we sell eggs. And it's so weird to hear you say, and she's a podcast host, because I don't ever refer to myself that way. But I guess I am.
Love it. I mean, that's where I met you. That's how we connected, is you're a podcast host. I was on your podcast and we had a great episode on your podcast, and we were just chatting about your garden and your farmer's market and your farm to table sales and your chickens and why you do what you do and how you're getting into it. And yeah, I loved my time on your episode. And so it's just real and raw conversation. That's what I appreciated about you. So where in the world are you?
I am in LeSueur, Minnesota. That would be capital L-E space capital S-U-E-U-R, Minnesota. And I don't think I pronounce it right. We just moved here 4.5, almost 5 years ago. It's French. I don't know. I don't know who named this town this name, but it's kind of a pain in the ass to say it.
That's funny. I'm not French, I'm Dutch, but yeah, for sure. Dutch background, Dutch blood. It probably explains a few things about me. Wooden head, wooden shoes, wouldn't listen. So yeah. So why did you buy the property? Why did you move to LeSueur? I'm probably even butchering that even worse. Minnesota. Why did you move to your property?
Well, we only lived about half an hour away in Jordan, Minnesota. And we lived in I think it was 850 square foot home. And it was on 1/10 of an acre. And on that 1/10 of an acre was the house and a 4-car garage. So that tells you how little space there was to grow anything. And by virtue of someone important to us passing away, we ended up with a little extra fundage. We decided back in 2020 that it was really hard being surrounded by people, but not being able to be near people because of COVID. And we had always wanted to look for a bigger piece of land because we wanted to do more growing, because we wanted to feed ourselves. And so my husband was like, start looking, get hold of our realtor. We had looked back in 2015, couldn't find anything affordable. And he said, get hold of, I can't even think of her name now, Lori, and see what's available, because now's the time to do it if we're going to do it, because we were both 50. And if we didn't do it then, we probably never would. And so we looked at 5 places. They were all very different, but the requirement was that wherever we landed, it had to have a decent space for a garden, like big enough to have a big garden, and it had to be flat. And my realtor called me and said, I need you guys to meet me at 6:30 tonight in LeSueur, Minnesota. And what's funny about that is the night before, it had stormed like crazy. The weather radio had gone off all night, and my husband and I were both exhausted. And my husband went to work, and I said, he's not going to want to go tonight. He's exhausted. And she said, what's your middle name? And I said, Evelyn. And she said, Mary Evelyn, I need you to effing meet me in LeSueur tonight. I found your house.
That's a crazy story. I love it so far.
So we went and we looked at it, and my husband thought that it would be too much, and I let him get that out of his system. And he went to work the next day, and I sat down and crunched numbers all day, handed him a spreadsheet and said, it will actually cost us less to live there than it costs us to live here. And he looked at it and he said, you hate numbers. And I said, I hate numbers. I like words. He said, you really want to do this, don't you? I said, I do. It's the perfect spot for us to be for the rest of our lives. And so we moved. We jumped. We moved during COVID by ourselves. All the stuff out of a house we'd lived in for 20 years into a brand new house.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
And you know, the part that I love about that the most is you're 50. You said you're 50?
I'm 55 now, but this was
55.
5 years ago.
Right. So you're 50 when you do this, and you take off a big bite and make yourself swallow it of buying a homestead. And, you know, that just shows the listeners it's not too late. Like, just do it. Just take the bite and just do it, because food is so important. And the fact that you're growing a huge garden and sharing not only with yourselves and with your children, you know, like, and others, I love it.
It would have been a big bite at 25. It was a big, almost not swallowable bite at 50.
Yeah, but that's what homesteading is. You know, that's what homesteading and actually farming, because that's what homesteading is, small scale farming. And what you're doing is you are tic-tac-ticianing. You crunched your numbers and figuring out and finagling how to run your small business and how to make it work. And that's what farming is. That's what agriculture is. And that's what food is. You know, when you're doing farm to table and farm to table sales, you have to know your numbers, and you just figured it out, and you take a big bite off and you chew it up and you make yourself swallow it. It can be done. It can be done at 44. I'm doing it at 44. It can be done at 50. It can be done at 25. I've had people on the podcast that are younger. We just need more of it. That's what I believe.
Yeah, and the other reason that I wanted to do it is because I grew up in a small town in Maine, in the pine trees in the woods, basically, you know, in a house. And our neighbors, there was space between our house and the next door neighbor. And where we lived in Jordan, there was no space. We were in town. And I'm not the most social girl ever. Like, I have social anxiety, and I fully admit it. I don't like being at the beck and call of everyone around me. You know? And so when we saw this place, it's surrounded by cornfields and soybean fields. Our nearest neighbor is a quarter-mile away. So when people pull in the driveway, they're either lost, or they're coming to get stuff from the farm stand, or they're friends who have been invited. There's a reason why they're here. They're not just knocking on the door like, hi, you got 2 hours to sit around and chat.
A vacuum cleaner salesman, like, we're here to sell you a vacuum. Yeah, no thanks. Now, I don't understand the introvert part, because I'm an extreme extrovert. We're very opposite that way. But yeah, if you're an introvert down a gravel road, are you on a gravel road?
Nope. 2-lane highway.
2-lane highway. Okay, so you've got good access. But anyways, in the country with cornfields and soybean fields, like, that is country living right there. And so, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, I was going to say, it's amazing how you start to talk like a farmer the minute you own property. We had a friend down like 2 weeks after we moved in, and we were showing him the property. It's 3 acres. And I was like, and the garden's going to go over there, and we're going to have to finagle hoses for this, and we're going to have to do that. And it was all this farm word speak. And I stopped and I was like, who am I? I don't talk like this.
See, and that's all I know, because that's what I've done since I was almost birthed. Since I can remember, I was living on a farm growing vegetables and had the big greenhouse. And it just brought up a little story. I don't even know why I'm sharing this. But when my parents first moved to a small property, they bought I don't know, it's probably about 10,000 square foot greenhouse. They were in a partnership with someone. And the people in the partnership, they wanted to do market garden stuff. So they did gardening, and they rototilled a big piece around my parents' house. And my parents had like little kids. So I was 5 or 6 and my brothers were, 4 and 2 or something like that. We were little. And I remember thinking that I was going to help these people one day weed. And so they had all these tall plants right close to my house, and I was going to help them. So I was pulling all these plants out. Yeah, it was their dill, and they were really upset with me that I was pulling out their dill and not, because we were told when we moved there, like, I can remember weeding and picking all these weeds and putting them in a 5-gallon pail. I think we got 25 cents per 5-gallon pail of weeds or something like that. It was crazy. Child labor, which every farmer does. And yeah, I took it upon myself that I was going to help them weed this other patch, and it was all their dill. They got really upset with me.
Whoops.
It's a little side note, but yeah. So don't make sure you know your plants from your weeds, I guess.
Yeah, and if you don't, and they're actually your plants and your weeds, just replant the plants. The chickens or the eggs, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's talk about the gardens because it is very exciting here right now. Our garden is just flourishing. Like if I sit on the couch in my living room, there's a window right across, and the garden is out that window across the driveway. And my husband put in like 40 cabbage babies back a month ago, and they look so gorgeous. And then behind that, there's more stuff. And last spring, there was nothing in the garden because it rained all of May and into June. So I am so big-hearted this morning, like full of joy because I looked out my window and went, the garden is flourishing.
Do you remember the toilet paper wars of 2020? Are you worried about being prepared in an emergency? Are you tired of being a slave to the corporations we purchase from? It's time to take control. Become ungovernable. Take your food system into your own hands. Hi, I'm Dawn, a coach dedicated to helping you live like Grandma used to. Self-reliant, resourceful, and prepared. Whether it's raising chickens, growing a garden, canning your own food, or even milking a cow, I'll teach you how to thrive and survive in the space you have, big or small. We can even potentially make some money off your homestead. Visit Dawn's Dirt today to book your free jumpstart call. Together, as a team, we can get you self-reliant and ungovernable. We, the people, have the power to take back control. Remember, if you give a man a fish, he eats for a day. But if you teach a man to fish, he eats for a lifetime. Let's build a better future and a community, one skill set at a time.
So how proud are you of growing food?
Incredibly proud. And not because it keeps us fed, but because it keeps our community fed too. I mean, we share, we sell, we grew bedding plants, extra bedding plants this year so that people could buy them to start their own garden.
See, that's amazing, and you hit on the word that comes up so often in my podcast, the word community. And that's the part that I love of small scale farming and homesteading is the team relationship between the customers and the people and the community and building relationship around food and agriculture. That's where it's at. That if you want to know what wakes Dawn up in the morning and gets me excited about, doing what I'm doing. I've even got my own chickens and, I had my gardens and I did farmers markets it was the people. As you know, I'm an extreme extrovert. And so, yeah, going to a farmers market and building relationship with people around food is just, I could vibrate. I'm so excited about that. Like that's where it's at. And that's where we need to get our food system back to, I feel like. Never mind political views. I think that we need to shake the hand of the person that feeds you and build community. And we need to have more people growing gardens and having a few chickens. If everyone had 3 chickens in their backyard, we would not have 3 chickens in a garden in their backyard. We would not have hunger problems, nationwide. And what's your thoughts on that?
I think you're absolutely right. And I am so thankful for my husband because he's the one that goes to the farmer's market because he's like you. He freaking loves people. He loves getting there, getting set up, and people come up to him all the time and they're like, so how's the garden? How many tomato plants did you put in this year? Because tomatoes are a big deal around here. People really like tomatoes, whether it's fresh or to can them or to freeze them. And he was telling me that somebody came up to him last Saturday and said, how many tomato plants did you put in this year? And he said, over 200. And they were like, why so many? And he learned a lesson last year because he couldn't get tomato plants in the ground May 15th, as usual, because it was all mud. And so he ended up putting plants in, I think, mid-June. Those rotted out because the garden was so wet. He put in more plants in, I think, beginning of July, and those, half of them survived. And then he put more in at the end of July, and we had tomatoes in September, the end of September. And so when he started the plants back in February in our house, he said, I'm going to plant a lot just in case. And so he told this to the person at the farmer's market, and they were like, let me know when they start coming in because I want to buy like a bushel so I can can tomato sauce. And it's just those stories that make me so happy because we're going to sell a bushel for like probably $25. I don't know right now, but $25 for a bushel of tomatoes. A bushel of tomatoes is a lot. And you can't get a bushel of tomatoes at the grocery store for that.
No, and I'll be honest with you, like again, tomatoes were my specialty
Yeah.
when I had my big farm, and there's nothing like a good tomato. Good ingredients make good food. So good tomatoes make good sauce. And so to get those farm to table tomatoes that were plant ripened, not, picked off green and then ripened, but plant ripened, red, tasty, full of, nutrients and the things that the plant has sucked out of the soil. Like that sauce is going to taste like better than anything you'll ever get anywhere else. And again, it was about the relationship. Let me know when the tomatoes are ready. And also hearing you talk about I replanted in May and I replanted in June and I replanted in July. Welcome to farming. That's what farming and homesteading is. It's not everything works out properly. You can have a plan and then realize that, plan B and plan C and plan D and plan M and N and O and P. Like that's how it has to work sometime on a homestead. It's just not going to work out to plan. But it sounds like with your 200 tomato plants and the weather seemed a bit better this year so far, that you're going to end up with a pile of tomatoes. So I love that.
Yeah, and I'll let you in on a little secret. I eat a tomato a day from the first one until we put the plants to bed. And by the time we put the plants to bed, I'm like, I don't want to see another tomato till spring. And then 2 weeks later, I'm like, God, I wish we still had some of our fresh tomatoes off the vine. It's so dumb.
Yeah, but that's the way it should be, right? Is that you get your fill. I always say that to customers in Alberta here, because I'm in Alberta, Canada. You should have your fill of asparagus in May and June so that you don't even want to see and think about another asparagus crop until the next May and June. And for us, our corn season is August, September. You should eat your fill of corn in August and September so that you don't even want to think about it until the next year. That's what seasonal local eating is when it's in season, you fill your cup up to the point that, I've had enough. And then you go again the next year. Tomatoes are a little different. Good tomatoes year round is yeah. You can't beat a good tomato. Toasted tomato sandwich. Yum.
Can we talk about cucumbers just for like a minute?
Oh, we can talk about anything we want to because it's our show today.
Awesome. I love cucumbers, okay? Same thing as the tomatoes. From the first cucumber that comes in, I eat a cucumber a day. So basically, I cut up a tomato and a cucumber and eat that with olive oil and balsamic vinegar for my lunch. That's what I try to do because I love them. I don't buy cucumbers at the store in the wintertime because they're gross. They don't even taste like a cucumber.
No. I've gone to stores before, and again, when my parents' farm started, they were actually cucumber farmers, not tomato farmers. Mm-hmm. And so I was raised on good, long English cucumbers, and I know what a fresh one tastes like. When a cucumber gets a week old, I don't even want it anymore. And I've gone into grocery stores where I've seen bins of these, what they call cucumbers, and I'm like, those cucumbers are 3 or 4 weeks old. I can just tell by the way they look and by the way they feel and everything. And I wouldn't shell out good money out of my pocket to eat one or to pay for one of those cucumbers. It's just not the same thing. It's not the same product. When you shop at a farmer's market direct from the farmer, and when you shop at a grocery store, those two products are completely different things because direct from the farmer, you're getting it that week. You're getting it, picked fresh that day or maybe the day before. Whereas anything in a grocery store, best case, it's a week old because by the time it goes from the farm to the packing house, to the warehouse, to the, other warehouse, to the back of the store, to the front of the store, it's not the same product. Best case, that's a week-long process.
Exactly. And I feel really privileged and spoiled as I listen to myself talk. Not everyone realizes they can do this. Not everyone is set up to do this, although they could be. You can grow tomatoes and cucumbers in a pot on your patio.
Yes, absolutely. I teach people how to do that.
But I'm not rich, but I feel so rich when I look at this and go, in 2 weeks, we're probably going to have our first tomatoes this year. This is so freaking exciting.
Yeah. And, oh man. Yeah, absolutely. And I guess that's a little dose of humble pie here too, because you're right. I was privileged growing up. I ate cucumbers right off the plant. I only want the good ones, Yeah. little dose of humble pie there. I appreciate that because it is a privilege, and it's a privilege that I want to share with more people. I think we need to take our food system back into our own hands and grow more in the spaces that we have. And so, because I want to share that privilege with people, I had customers come to my booth and they would tell me that their kids wouldn't eat tomatoes, but they'd eat my tomatoes. And, I want to be able to share that knowledge and that experience and with more people. And I guess that's maybe even why I'm doing this podcast, is because more people need to be empowered to know that they can be 50 years old and buy a piece of property, get some chickens, plant a garden, go to the farmer's market and share with their community. Like, wow, inspiring, actually.
I love it. It's so fun. And it's hard work. I mean, my husband has the most fantastic farmer's tan right now on his arms.
Well,
he took his shirt off yesterday to change shirts from work, and I was like, whoa, you are like ivory skinned from mid-arm up, and you are tan. You are so dark. He's like, well, yeah, I've been out in the sun for a month. I was like, holy crap, honey.
Exactly, right. That farmer's tan is a thing. So you commented on the little dress that I'm wearing today, and I don't wear dresses or pretty things like this very often. And I still have my ball cap on, but I put this little dress on yesterday, and my daughter, she said to me, Mom, because it's got bare sleeves or no sleeves.
Yeah.
And she said, Mom, you have a farmer's tan. And I was like, okay, I'm still wearing the cute little dress though. Cause yeah, most times I'm wearing jeans and a t-shirt and a ball cap that's, all dirty head to toe. Cause I've been working outside, and yeah, I'm a little dressed up prettier tonight or today. Cause I was at a market last night and I just put on last night's clothes.
I think the ball cap is the perfect accessory.
Well, I'm a farm girl, right? Like, I just don't even know how not to be a farm girl. So yeah, it's just ingrained in who I am. So, okay. So you sell your tomatoes and you sell your cabbages and you sell your produce at the farmer's market. Your husband does the farmer's market. You do the podcasting, and you've got chickens, you said.
I sure do. 25.
Okay, so you have
25 chickens.
25 chickens. So you have a small flock of chickens. What kinds are they? Are they heritage breeds? Are they browns? Are they whites?
They're the ISA browns,
Nice.
Mostly because they lay every day, and they lay in the wintertime as long as they have some light in the coop. And after eating store-bought eggs from, last September until this March, I want my eggs in the wintertime. And it's probably not very nice to the chickens, but chickens are built to lay eggs, so.
Absolutely. And those Isa Browns, like, that's what people don't understand about homesteading is, they get into the heritage breeds, and, we always see the egg math on Instagram and Facebook, and all the rainbow colors and things like that. But those are heritage breeds, and those breeds of chickens actually don't produce eggs every day, or almost every day. Just like you were saying, those Isa Browns, they are bred to lay almost an egg a day. I know I've got Lohman Browns right now, and that's why I got them. I've got a few heritage breeds, and they give me a few eggs, but those Lohman Browns, they're about 6 eggs a week out of one chicken, and they're about production. And I think that's the part about homesteading that people sometimes forget, is you need to know what's going to produce the best to get the best results, or unless you just want to pay a bit more and just get the pretty eggs, that's okay too, but that's a choice to make. But they're not going to tic-tac-tician or pencil out quite as well as those just Isa Browns or Lohman Browns, or, just the brown or even white eggs. People sometimes say that there's a difference between the white eggs and the brown eggs. It's actually neither. They taste the same as long as you feed them the same. So whatever you feed the chicken is how the taste turns out. So if you're feeding them scraps, and if you're feeding them grass, and if you're feeding them, vegetables out of your garden and the prunings and, things like that, and the bugs, and they're out in the open, that's how you get those dark orange yolks. So it's not about the color of the egg shell. It's about what you fed them. Did you know that?
Yep. I do. Our chickens right now have a big run, and so they do get grass and eggs and weeds, bugs and weeds, and so their yolks are very orange right now. Once the garden is done, they will have free range of the whole property. We don't have a fence around our garden, and a chicken will destroy your garden. So right now, they have a very fancy run. They get to go outside all day, every day, except if the wind is really blowing, because winds blow so hard here where we're at that they will tip the chickens over.
Wow, that's insane. So what does that do to your garden then? I mean, wow.
The garden is low enough to the ground for the most part that it doesn't bother it too much. And plants don't have wings. So what happens is the chickens will be walking around, and you know how they'll stretch and put their wings out? The wind will get up under their wings and lift them. I'm like, do not fly away. We need you. But the other thing about the Isa Browns, or Isa Browns, however you say it, is they're very gentle, friendly chickens. They're not mean, and that's part of the reason we chose that breed.
Yeah, for sure. I've got a few of those heritage breeds, and I don't struggle with the hens as much as the roosters. And I will admit some of my roosters have had a not so nice demise because they would just attack people, and they would claw and they would peck and they would like attack your legs. And, if you're wearing shorts, that doesn't work. So, yeah.
No, it does not. We don't have any roosters on purpose. We couldn't breed our Isa Browns anyway because of the way that they were developed. And that sounds really creepy, but it's true. So there's no need to have a rooster right now.
Yeah, and I have a few roosters just because I did get my first chickens at this new property that I'm at were some heritage breeds, which is kind of fun. And some of them were roosters. And so I was actually gifted them from the local hatchery here in Alberta. And so, yeah, so it is kind of fun to have them. But yeah, the Browns are the way to go. Okay, and you're right. Back to the garden thing. So I have chickens here and I have them in big pens. And so they get the grass and the bugs and all the things. But you know what? I'm going to swear a little bit. I call them little bitches sometimes because they get out of the freaking pen and they go in my garden. And for the first couple weeks, my peas and my corn came up out of the ground. And next thing you know, I go out and I'm like between the goats and those chickens, like they just pecked it off. And so I've been like fencing because I'm on a new place here to try and keep these freaking animals out of my garden. It's been crazy.
You can clip one wing, the tips of the feathers on the chickens, and they won't be able to fly, right?
Yeah, for sure. So they weren't going, They're not going over the fence. They're actually finding, so what was happening is my goats, I got these two milk goats. Well, I had two milk goats and some babies. I sold the babies now. So my goats would go and they'd lift up the chicken wire at the bottom. So they were going under the wire. So I've had to like staple it all down with tent pegs and it's just, I should have gone with thicker gauge wire and better supplies. But I was being a little cheap because I'm Dutch and I'm paying the price for it. So, but I think I've got them mostly contained now. So as long as I find all the holes, fill all the holes, I think I've got it now.
Yeah, and even when you got it, sometimes you don't got it. We had a chicken get locked out of the coop a week or so ago. She was under the coop because we hadn't put anything to keep them from getting underneath. And my husband went out to feed the chickens in the morning, and he came in, and I said, "Is everybody good?" Because that's the question I ask every morning when he comes in. And he was like, "Nope." And I thought maybe our youngest barn cat had gotten killed because we have two barn cats and the youngest is not even a year old yet. And I was like, oh no, is Fluffy Butt dead? Because that's his name. He was very long haired. He's blown his coat, so now he's short haired. And he said, oh no, Fluffy Butt's alive. I said, the black barn cat? He's like, he's fine too. I said, okay, enough. You're burying the lead. What's dead? He said, there's a chicken that is basically ripped in half in front of the coop. And we think that a raccoon got in there or something. And we have fencing around there, but raccoons have thumbs, so they can climb the fence. So we thought we had it knocked, and no, we did not. So we had 25 chickens, now we have 24.
Yeah, that's tough. And that's again, these are great lessons. This is why I'm doing the podcast, is because homesteading and farming is not all black and white. Yeah, it's sad. Predators are a thing. The other night I've been keeping my dog outside actually just to try and fend off the coyotes. But the other night the coyotes were so close to the house and they were just yipping and yelping and whatever. And I actually got up out of bed and I went outside and I was, started talking and they went away. But yeah, like it's crazy. Like the predator pressure, if you have chickens, is a thing. And so lock them up good in a barn or in your shed or in your chicken coop or whatever you've got to keep them safe. But it is a thing. And yeah, I'm sorry to hear you lost a chicken. But if you have livestock, you're going to have dead stock too. And it's just part of it. It's the sad part of it, the hard part of it.
Yeah, it is. It's really hard. And I'm not going to say I'm numb to it because I will never be numb to it. But we've been here almost 5 years. We've lost barn cats. We've lost chickens. We've lost baby bunnies. We've lost 3-week-old kittens. And the first one that dies kills you. I cried. We lost a barn cat. he was 7 months old, I think, to somebody hitting him with a car. And of course, I could see his lifeless body out on the road, and I burst into tears, and I had a terrible day that day. Next barn cat died, and I slammed cabinet doors, and I said some swear words, and I did not cry, because crying doesn't fix anything. It's easier to be angry than it is to be sad.
Yeah. And so how do you deal with this chicken now?
He told me, and I said, it's sad. And I had that little hitch that happens in your chest when something happens that you didn't expect and you're sad. I said, we still have 24 more. We always buy more than we need because something's going to die. And the carcass got thrown out into the woods because our barn cats took care of it. Because barn cats don't care if it's our chicken or not.
Exactly, right? And so that's the circle of life too. I have a couple of pigs right now, and I've had some chicken stacks. I've got 150 layers, and then I've had a few hundred meat birds, and your loss is a little bit greater on those meat birds because they're the Cornish giants. And yeah, I feed them to my pigs, which is kind of gross, but pigs are omnivores, and so they take care of my dead stock for me. And you're right, it is sad. It's a loss. But you do you're right, get numb to it after a while. And so that's what people need to realize is that, these animals are there. We're to be stewards of them and care for them and do the best we can, but shit happens and sometimes there's loss.
Yeah, and every time this happens, I'm like, okay, we are so lucky to be able to take good care of these animals. And there's no accounting for the rogue chicken that you can't find to put in the coop. You're not going to spend all night walking the tree line trying to find this chicken that was too stupid to come in to eat.
Right? And chickens are stupid. That's what people they're not smart animals. They follow the crowd. They follow it's not a herd of chickens, but they follow one another, and yeah, they get really dumb. I have it all the time. They get outside the pen, and then I want to put them back in the pen, but they run the other way. And I'm like, if you would just run this way and just turn your head for 1 second and take a little look, just pause a little bit, chicken, you'd get right back in the pen. But no, they go the opposite way because they're dumb. Dumb as a chicken.
Dumb as a stump, as my dad says.
Were you raised on a farm?
No, but my mom and dad had an acre of land in Maine, and they kind of went out of their way too when they bought the property and had their house built on it to have space for a garden. So I don't remember a time really since I was 6 that my dad didn't have a garden.
Okay. And so you grew up having food in your backyard, which is why you love farm fresh produce now.
Oh, yeah.
Is because you were raised with it.
Yep, and my dad's dad rented a farm as a place to live. It had a big old red barn, and he didn't have any livestock, but he had a hill between the house and the road. It was a gradual slope, and he had a hillside garden. The first cucumber I ever ate was out of his garden, and I think I was 4 or 5, and I remember this, which is crazy. And there was this small cucumber, and I said, "Grandpa, is it ready to eat?" And he said, "Well, Lenny, yeah," because my nickname is Lynn, so he called me Lenny. And I said, "Can I pick it?" And he was like, "Yeah." He said, "Here's how you do it." And he told me to twist and pull. And I twisted and pulled this cucumber off, and I handed it to him, and he said, "Why are you handing it to me?" And I said, "Don't you want to wash it?" And he said, "No." He said, "Here's what you do." And he rubbed it against his jeans to get the little prickers off. He says, "Here." And he breaks it in half and hands it to me and says, "Take a bite." And that was the first cucumber out of the garden I ever ate. And I still to this day can remember looking at him as I bit into it and him watching my face and just smiling.
Yeah. Wow, what a fundamental memory, core memory of a cucumber and a garden and just eating it right out of the soil, right out of, not washing it because you know what you've done with your food. This is why gardening and this is why food and local food and doing it in your backyard and doing it in the space you have is so important. It's for the kids, right? You're 55 and that's a fundamental core memory is you and food. And yeah, I'm privileged to have the same thing.
Yeah, it's really special, Special is such an overused, trite word these days, but in the truest sense of the word, it's a very special memory for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. And, one more thing that I want to call attention to just in that story as well is the fact that it was your grandpa. They rented a farm. They rented a farm. They didn't even own the farm. They didn't even own the soil that they were on. And right now I own my house, but I don't own the soil that I'm on either. And you can rent a place and grow food as well. You don't have to own it. You don't have to. I've been listening a lot to Joel Salatin. He's a Polyface Farms he's a big farmer, probably the most famous farmer out of the United States. I met him once years ago. I was co-speaking at a, not with him, but like in a little breakout session. I was a small speaker and he was like the main gig. And he says the same thing, is just use the space you have. And if you can't afford to buy the dirt, then just rent it. Just use the nooks and crannies in the corners and be creative in, growing food and raising your chickens and building your business in the space that you have. It doesn't have to take a lot of space. And I'm on just shy of an acre here. I don't own the dirt, but yeah, I'll do probably $25,000 worth of eggs and meat birds this year, just in the little space that I have. And I'm thankful. So you don't have to dream big. Well, you can't always dream big, but you don't have to be big to just do it. You just have to do it.
Yeah, I always say do what you can with what you have where you are.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And so if that's a backyard or if that's a balcony in the city, just if you're on the north side, grow some lettuce. And if you're on the south side, grow some tomatoes. Like it's just that simple. Pole beans in town on a balcony. I've got a friend and she told me that she lives in the city of Calgary and she said she had her little balcony and she grew so many beans that she didn't even know what to do with them. And that was in a city balcony in an high-rise apartment building.
Oh, yeah. And regarding Joel, I interviewed Joel on my podcast over a year ago.
Man, how was that?
It was nerve-wracking because I was only like 8 months into podcasting, if that. And he was the biggest name person that I had asked, and he had said yes. I have a minor crush on Joel. He is very sweet. He is very kind. And I didn't even know what I was going to ask him. And I did not necessarily ask him about what he grows. I asked him what started it. And he told me. And then I asked him something else and he answered that. And I think the last question I asked him was did you ever expect to be this well known and this famous? Was this a surprise to you? And he was so honest and vulnerable about no, he didn't expect to be, and it wasn't the plan. He's fantastic. If you can, and also if you would like to interview him, all you have to do is email him and see if he has time.
I've actually been thinking of sending in an email, and I've crafted the email in my head several times, so I should just take the plunge and do it. I did meet him several years ago. We chatted about my former farm. Yeah, he's a very humble, kind man and wise. He's so wise and so creative and so passionate about small scale farming and so passionate about the fact that just anyone can do it. And that's the part that I love is it's true. We don't need to rely on this big system. We the people have the power to just do this ourselves, and he empowers people and makes them feel like they can do it themselves as well. And that's why I'm here, and that's why I'm doing this, is I want to empower people to grow food in the spaces they have, because you can do it. You just can do it. You just gotta bite off that big bite and chew it and swallow it.
Well, part of the reason that I started my podcast was kind of for the same reasons. I wanted people to hear the stories of the people who have tried this and either said, nah, it's not for me, or they're still in the middle of it and still loving it, or they're toward the end of it and they're like, it was a great run.
Yeah, absolutely. And it isn't for everyone. It is hard work, and it is it is high roller gambling. If you get a hailstorm come through, or if you get something on your garden, and like, it's a gamble to know whether you're going to get produce out of your garden this year, or whether, the raccoon's going to get in your chicken coop. And some people can handle that gambling and some people can't. But you just do what you can in the space you have. And it is tough. People need to know that. Part of why I'm doing this as well is to tell people that, it is hard work, it's dedication, it's not always going to be easy, but the outcome is so worth it.
Yeah, and let's remind everybody, life isn't meant to be easy. Life is meant to be lived, and it just depends on how you're living it.
Oh, I really like that. Life isn't meant to be easy. Life is meant to be lived. There's so much truth packed in that one statement there. Because yeah, life's not easy. And I've said that to I've got 3 teenage girls, I've said to them over and over the years, life's not easy. buckle up. It's just, it's got its hard moments, and you find the joy in the joys, and you find the growth and the strength in the hard parts.
Yeah, there's beauty in all of it. If you're not experiencing things, you're going to miss it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I got up this morning and I was like, I'm so tired. It was a very long, rough weekend here in Minnesota. I don't want to talk about it. I will just cry. And it was just a beautiful sunrise. I had my coffee and I was sitting on the porch, and the bird song was going on, and I heard one of my chickens squawk, and I heard the cow a quarter of a mile away do the low that she does in the morning. And I realized that everything is actually okay. It might have been a hard weekend, but everything today is okay. And okay is good.
Ooh, yeah, absolutely. And the fact that, you had a hard weekend, you're able to sit on your porch, you're able to listen to nature, farm and the sunrise and the birds and the chickens, that's nature. That's our gift. Like, God gave us that gift of just and we're told to enjoy it, and to sit in the porch, enjoy a cup of coffee. I love coffee too. And enjoy the joy amidst hard. I think that's why it was created, is to give us those moments of peace and pleasure. Yeah. So cool.
Thank God. Thank God. If it was all hard, we just wouldn't live. We'd just give up.
And I mean, that's the thing too. Like, yeah, but that's the importance of the high highs. I heard once too, if you don't have the mountains, or if you didn't have the valleys, or if you didn't have, how does that quote go? Something about the mountains and the valleys. If you didn't have the mountains, you wouldn't have the valleys, or if you didn't have the valleys, you wouldn't have the mountains. And so it's ups and downs, If it was just all flat, and it'd be not boring, it would be just boring. Like, it would just be not bad, not good. And there's not that dichotomy of up and down. And so we've been gifted up and down, and it's just to take the joy and find the little moments in, the ups and the downs.
Hey friends, on Dawn's Dirt, we get real about growing food, farming, homesteading, living free, and digging into the stuff that actually matters. If you're loving the dirt we're dishing out, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow on your favorite social media platforms. That's how we keep growing this community of badass, soil-covered, chicken-loving, freedom-chasing humans. Like and subscribe to me on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name it. Come be part of the movement.
Yeah, my greatest joy this weekend, thank God for it, was our peony plants are almost done blooming. The blooming season is almost over. And I didn't think I was going to get a yellow peony this year. We did last year. And I didn't see any buds on that plant. And I was like, well, I guess we're not going to have yellow peonies this year. And my husband brought in brought in like 6 blooms, and he said, you might want to look close, and one of them was yellow. And I was like, are you kidding me? He said, no. I said, that's the best thing about this weekend, is that yellow peony. And he said, really? I said, yep, that's what I'm hanging on to.
See, exactly, right? Finding the small joys in a yellow peony, that's where it's at. And that's being positive, right? So finding the little positives in life and in your daily tasks. And if you can find several little positives in your weekend or in your day or whatever it is, just the smallest little thing, and just let that joy fill your cup. I was at a farmer's market this past Thursday, and I had a few things go sideways on me, and I met a woman, and she was just a beautiful soul, and she sells water. She bottles water from a spring, a mountain spring, and her company is called Joy. And when I left the market the other day, I had my window on my truck rolled down, and when I went to go get into my truck to leave, I found this little bottle of water on my seat, and it was Joy water. And as I was driving home drinking this water, I was like, man, the name is fitting, because that was joy, just a small gift left on my seat, a random kind act from someone, and it just brought me joy. And that's also where we need to be. And that's where you can be if you have gardens and if you have a homestead. It's building the relationship. And when you can share a tomato, or when you can, make a deal on something, or just brighten someone's day. Here, I used to give away tomatoes sometimes. Here, you're having a bad day, here's a bag of tomatoes, this will cheer you up. And it's taking what you have and giving it, and doing things for others. What's that golden rule? That which you do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And so if we're all doing something little for other people, that'll come for full circle as well, and it'll be returned.
Yeah, and there's something in pagan or Wiccan beliefs too about if you do an action, it comes back to you like threefold or sevenfold. I can't remember the number. And it's kind of the same thing as the golden rule. So if I give someone a bag of tomatoes and they're like, what am I supposed to do with this? I'm like, I don't know. You're going to learn something, figure it out. And then something good happens. It can be almost instantaneous in your own life.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm curious with that little rule, if you turn it around the other way, if you do something bad or do something evil, does it come back on threefold as well? That I'm just curious about that. That's where my thought brain went.
I think it's all things, and I try really hard to not do anything bad because I don't need 3 to 7 times more bad.
None of us do. None of us do. But yeah, so I guess that's the thought for the day is plant the little seeds of kindness and goodness and, treating others and it'll come back threefold or sevenfold in the other way because we want to do good and be kind to other people and not just be self-centered and, hungry and yeah.
Be a good ripple effect, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Just be a good person. What's that? Don't be a dick. Sorry, that's a little crude, but don't be a dick. Just be kind and don't be a dick. Even if you have a different belief system, don't be a dick. Just be kind.
Yeah, there's a guy that does marketing. I've been following him for years, and his thing is just be one step above the worst person you know, and you've made a step toward good.
I love that. And that doesn't set the bar very high. But, again, if you're practicing that, if you're practicing the little things that you can do within your capabilities, yeah, it'll all come around.
Exactly.
For sure. So just any final last thoughts for the listeners today on homesteading, on gardening, on, biting off more than you can chew, on growing vegetables, having chickens. Give us some parting words of wisdom. That's a lot, hey? That's a lot.
Just try something new. And the worst thing that happens is it's not for you and you don't keep doing it. And try to realize that we're all human beings and we're all just trying to live our lives. And here in America, it's something about the pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness, I think. I don't know if that's the same thing in Canada. Life, liberty, and happiness is something that every human being should try to have in their life, and just stop beating on people, stop cutting people down, lift people up.
I love that. I couldn't agree with you more. Let's start being the community. Let's start being the light. Circle that around food and homesteading and farming and gardens and chickens and, all the lovely things. And yeah, lift one another up, even if they're different than you. Just be kind and lift one another up. I think that's the theme of this podcast. So thanks so much for joining me today. Really appreciate your time. This was a great episode. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dawn.
Yeah.